There are huge advantages and only a few disadvantages when it comes to the implicit interface implementations in Golang. One disadvantage of it is that there is no real way to enumerate all the implementations of one specific interface in a codebase. But this disadvantage is really invisible if you compare it with all the other advantages. However, there's kind of a way to explicitly implement interfaces for a specific struct in Golang, and I will show you that in this video, so that in the end really you get the best of both worlds with Golang interfaces. Okay, what we're going to do is basically we're going to quickly implement a really simplified file processor that can just process different files. And I mean really simplified, so there's no real logic here, we're just going to kind of parse a CSV file. Now for that we can easily leverage an interface here with a function that just generalizes all of the file processors we are going to implement here. Alright, so let's get started here with the interface implementation or the interface definition. And how we are going to define interfaces, obviously we're just going to say type file processor and then we're going to say interface. Now again, specifically we are defining an interface here for any type that can really pass lines from some sort of content. And it's notable that an interface in Golang really defines what a type can do and not what it really is. So that really we are just going to say pass lines here because in the end a file processor should pass the line somehow. And this function takes in a content string and then returns a slice of string and a possible error. Because really errors can occur while passing lines of a specific file. So again, like I said in the beginning, this is not a fully fledged out file processor. We are going to keep things really basic and really simple. So let's just create a struct here, which we are going to call CSV parser. And this struct will then implement the file processor interface. And we are going to have a empty struct definition here because we need the type, but we don't really want to store any data in it. Okay, so let's quickly implement this function here. Like I said before, we're going to say CSV parser and then we're going to say parse lines content string. Literally the same definition like we have in the interface here. And then in here we're just going to return lines and nil. And here we're going to define the lines as strings.split. Then we say strings.trim space content. And then we say we are going to split by a new line here. Now, like I said before, we can make this function more functional and we can check for errors, or maybe if the content is empty, we can even return a new error. So feel free to implement this here. Like I said in the beginning, we're going to keep things simple here. And with that function, we kind of satisfy the interface implementation because we do have the exact function definition here. Now you could also leverage here a value receiver instead of a pointer receiver. I've also made a video just specifically about these struct functions and structs in general. So feel free to check out this video as well. Okay, but nevertheless, we are going to quickly create a function here called process file. And in this process file function, we are going to take in a file processor interface so that in the end we can kind of pass in any sort of struct that satisfies this interface. And then we're going to say content string, and in the end it also returns a string and an error. So string slice and an error in this case. And in here we are just going to simply call parse lines and pass in the content. And that's it for this function. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now let's quickly leverage this function and the whole parse line functionality in our main function. And what we're going to do is just create a CSV parser, or we can even call it CSV processor instead of CSV parser because it is not really a parser, it is more like a processor. So let's rename this to CSV processor here. And then we say CSV result error, and then we say process file. And let's just use as the content a really simplified CSV string here. And then clearly we are going to use the CSV processor for our file processor parameter here. Now, if the error is not equal to nil, we are just going to return, and just for demonstration purpose, I'm going to print the error here. And after that, we are going to quickly print the CSV result here. And if we're going to run this code, we're going to see a successful processing of the CSV string. Now that is pretty cool. We now have like a file processor interface and a CSV processor struct. But what if specifically the parseLines functionality changes in the CSV processor? So for instance, we are going to have a new parameter called amount or something. And here's the actual problem, because now we kind of change the definition, but we do not get any error in terms of like this struct here. Right, so there is no current way to actually see, okay, this CSV processor is actually implementing the file processor interface. Now, obviously we do get an error, but things can get a bit complicated if you kind of want to export this library or you have like a huge code base. So now you might ask yourself, is there a way to explicitly say that the CSV processor is implementing the file processor interface? And you guessed it, there is. And let's undo this amount thing here. Now we are going to implement this explicit way of kind of saying that this processor is implementing the specific interface here. I'm going to quickly type the line. It's just one line of code. And then I'm going to explain what happens, what are the costs, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. So what we're going to say is just var underscore. Then we are using the file processor type. And then we say a pointer to a CSV processor struct, and then nil. Now with that line, we just explicitly stated that this CSV processor struct is implementing, or it wants to satisfy the file processor interface. So that really, when we change the definition here of the function, we say amount int, we do get an error right in the file, right there where we kind of define the function, but also the struct itself. Okay, so let me quickly highlight what is actually going on here, what actually happens in this line. Now, generally, this is a compile time check to really ensure that the CSV processor is implementing the file processor. So this line has no real impact on the runtime performance or the binary size. Now let's just focus on the first part here, and we have a magic underscore. Now this magic kind of underscore generally declares an anonymous variable, which just indicates that the variable's value will not be used in the program. Then we do have the definition of the file processor interface, that's pretty clear so far. And then we have a type conversion going on, which just creates a nil pointer of a specific type, right? So in the end, basically it is a pointer to a struct that just points to nothing in the end. And the result of this kind of way of describing or using this type conversion is that you get a type nil pointer. So it's nil because it points to nothing, but Go knows what type it would point to if it did point to something. Just an analogy, it's like having an empty parking space with a sign that says reserved for Toyota, for instance, but there is no car there, but you know what type of car belongs in that space. So hopefully that was kind of clear here what this weird line really means. And this line again serves as a really self-documenting code, right? Because it serves as an inline documentation and really signals the relationship between a type and an interface without really needing a comment that just says, hey, this implements a file processor interface. Clearly this comment can be useful, but again, if I change just the definition of this function, it doesn't result in a compile time issue. And that's why we have this neat line here. So just to demonstrate the power of that, let's just say that the interface changes, right? And we do have, let's just say hello world as a function here. What we get is a compile time error. That again, if we hover over it, we get this error here. But the most valuable thing is that in the end, we have a missing method hello world. And that is pretty cool. So if we just implement this hello world method, this error goes away and we can leverage the CSV processor again. So let's just remove the hello world here, and then that should be it. Now, besides all of these advantages, like an inline kind of way to document your code and refactoring safety, right, which just ensures that all the implemented types are updated accordingly and to really prevent these silent failures, there are even a few trade-offs here you might consider. Now, for this specific example, it was kind of unnecessary to do this definition because it was quite clear that the CSV processor actually implements the file processor interface. So the trade-off is here that it's not really always necessary for small obvious cases where this implicit satisfaction is really clear. Like you have a single method interface with just one implementation, like in this example. And the other trade-off is that it obviously adds a little bit of boilerplate code. But really, like I said before, it doesn't really increase the binary size or reduces performance in any way. Now, I think personally that this check is most beneficially for library code for interfaces that are really critical to the application's functionality, or really in larger projects to really enforce a consistent approach to interface validation. Now, hopefully you understood this little trick to make your life in Golang a little bit easier. Now, if you also ever wanted to improve your unit test by controlling time, then I highly recommend checking out this video here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, have a lovely day, and bye bye.